Hey everybody, what's up? Hope you're all doing good today. Just up for our next lure category that we're going to be talking about. We took a break the last couple of days and did some other topics, but today we're going to get back on it, and I'm going to talk about oversized big swim bait fishing, which is one of the techniques that really fascinates me. So we're going to go over it in detail a little bit. But hey, before we get started, just want everybody to know, had a few changes with fishthemoment.com. A lot of you guys that subscribe to the Fish the Moment channel, just want everybody to know that Fish the Moment has started a second YouTube channel called Fish the Moment Live, and we're going to be putting all of our live streams, the podcasts, that type of stuff on the Fish the Moment Live YouTube channel. There'll be a lot of little, clip segments. Going to have a bunch of stuff, with just our live podcast stuff, and on the fishthemoment.com. The regular YouTube channel, we're going to continue putting out these super high quality instructional videos. So sort of breaking it up between fishthemoment.com just with the instructional fishing videos, and Fish the Moment Live with all the live podcasts and that type of stuff. So if you haven't subscribed to Fish the Moment Live, please do that. I think you guys will really like the info that comes on that. Okay, so let's get into these big swim baits here. We did a deal last week on glide baits, on big glide baits, and these big swim baits, they're sort of akin to that a little bit. It's a little bit different situations that you fish them, but basically they were sort of born out of the same deal there. Originated in California. They got picked up, through the word of mouth, and people started using them out east a little bit. And now the whole swim bait category, and we're talking today specifically about the soft-bodied swim baits. The whole swim bait deal has become one of the top lure category techniques that there is, and we're going to talk about them in detail because you've got swim baits all the way down from 2 inches up to over 10 inches on the soft side, and there's applications for every one of them. But today I want to talk specifically about the two biggest ones I use. And that is the Megabass 8-inch Magdrap and the Megabass 10-inch Magdrap. These are some big fish catching baits, but they're highly situational to when they work. And I think a lot of you, when we're talking about the Magdrap like this, a lot of you have probably seen this bait fished by Chris Zaldain or Oliver Nye a lot. Both Megabass pro staffers. Chris is probably responsible for making the Magdrap, more famous than about any other angler out there. He's had a lot of success on the Bassmaster Elite Series with it. He's gotten a lot of press, a lot of airtime catching fish on the Magdrap. He fishes, the 6 and 8 inch model quite a bit. So if you guys want to see some specific techniques as far as on the water footage of that, check out some of Chris Zaldain's stuff. He's got some really good stuff on that. But anyway, these things started in California. A lot of people back fishing like those California lakes, they started throwing that big Huddleston, the big trout looking swim bait, the big single hook on it, and there were some giant bags caught on that, and then there was a lot of modifications. And like I said, finally the two I want to talk about today are the Magdrap. So let's talk first about the Big Mama Magdrap. This is the 10-inch Megabass Magdrap. This bait weighs 6.3 ounces, so it's a chunk of plastic, man. I'm telling you. Here's as a reference. Here's a Megabass Vision 110 right next to it, so you can see the size difference, between the two. First thought when I first saw this thing, it's like, man, there's not going to be a bass hit this thing. This is like, something you'd fish in the ocean or something like that. And then I started talking to Oliver Nye, who has fished this bait a lot, and some of the people that have fished with him, and all the big fish that they catch on this thing. This is one of those deals where there's a handful of guys throwing this giant swim bait, not really talking about it, catching 8 to 10 pounders on the thing. And the situation for this, and the situation for both of these, a lot of it, but specifically when you're wanting to fish these big giant swim baits like the 10-inch ones here, you've got to have the bass in the right mood for it. The bass there's a real small window when you're going to have a fish commit to this particular thing, simply because it's such a commitment to a fish to hit a 10-inch bait on there. So the conditions that you want for this particular bait is you need nasty days. You need those days that, wind is critical. If you don't have wind on these things, I mean, not to say you can't catch them without wind, but it makes the bait 100 times better if you have wind. Something like a 10 to 20 mile an hour wind breaks up that surface a little bit, makes the fish a little bit more aggressive. Also, what I found on this thing is you need to have some type of a heavy, partly cloudy to cloudy type day with that wind. And that even makes those fish more aggressive and chase. And then on top of that, you have a bite window of the middle of the day. Anyone that has fished these big swim baits, a lot of people that are experts at it will tell you, and I found the same thing. It's like you'd think with these things, since they're so giant, they'd work right off the bat in the morning during low light. That's not really the case. The best swim bait bite time that I have found is like in the middle of the day, 10 to 2. That's the window that you need to throw it. That's the time that those fish are the most aggressive. Those bigger fish are more aggressive, and that's the time they're going to hit this. So there's a couple different areas that that I like to fish this thing in. First of all, the two primary places that I like to fish this giant swim bait in is over secondary points, where the water drops off fairly quick. And, so basically, say your boat's in 20 foot of water and you're casting to the bank on a long cast, and halfway back to the bank, you're in 10 to 15 feet of water. Those gradual sloping points that drop off into deeper water, whether they be secondary points, main lake points, it doesn't really matter. Those type of areas tend to hold bigger fish a lot of times, particularly during the pre-spawn and post-spawn time of the year. And I have found on these giant swim baits, you've got three different scenarios, but the three different time frames that they work best are during the pre-spawn and the post-spawn, during the middle of the summer for smallmouth up north, and then there's also a bite window that comes in towards the late fall, like October, that type of stuff. Those are the 3 times a year that they bite this thing the best. I've never done that really good fishing this bait in the middle of the summer for largemouth or spotted bass lakes, but it's pre-spawn, post-spawn type deal. So anyway, what I'm looking for is I'm fishing those main and secondary points, with these big swim baits right off the bat, bombing out those long casts, bringing it in with just a slow, steady retrieve, basically trying to angle across those points, hitting, 5 foot of water, 10 foot of water, 15 foot of water. Bass like to come up on this thing, so I keep it fairly high in the water column on a bait this big. The second situation I like to fish this thing is basically skipping it around overhanging trees or docks, that type of stuff. If there's a big fish in this particular, around a dock or something like that, anytime you've got a big fish like that, they will come out and look at this bait off of a dock or out from underneath a overhanging tree. The equipment that you need to throw this big 10-incher on is got to be super heavy. For both of these things, for the 10 and the 8-inch size, again, I use the Megabass Warhammer. It's a really stiff rod, almost 8 feet long. I couple that up with 25-pound test, Seaguard, and VizX fluorocarbon. And you need some type of a wide spool reel, fairly low gear retrieve. A lot of people, prefer 5.3 to 1 because when you're fishing these big swim baits, it's all about fishing it slow. If you fish them too fast, they tend to roll up on their side. So you need just a super slow retrieve on the thing, just getting that tail kicking back and forth. And the thing about these Magdrap swim baits, the reason they're so effective is when they're coming through the water, you've got the head wiggling and you've got the tail wiggling at the same time. So you've got the head wiggle, the tail wiggle, and in order to get that bait to really telegraph to the fish the best, you need a super slow retrieve. A lot of times, the bait, it sinks a little bit, doesn't sink real quick, so I like to control the depth of it with my rod tip position. If I want to keep it shallower, I'm keeping my rod higher. If I want to keep it lower, I'm counting it down, keeping it closer to the bottom. But anyway, the big 10-inch one, this is sort of like what we talked about with the big 262 Megabass glide bait. It's a bait that you're not going to get a lot of bites on. You're going to get followers on this thing from big fish, but under the right conditions, When you got those conditions that we talked about earlier, you can catch some giants on this. Now the next one is the one that is actually a little bit more applicable for everyday fishing situations. It's the 8-inch Magdrap. You know, here's the size comparison to it. And this bait is still quite a bit bigger than the typical megabass, the 6-inch megabass Magdrap, which, see if I got one here, you know. Yeah, here's a picture of as far as the size comparison of the 6-inch to the 8-inch. This is the one that Chris Zaldain uses a lot, the 6-inch one. But anyway, the 8-inch Magdrap, this is the deal that a lot of tournament anglers are incorporating into their fishing now, because it's a big bait, yet it's still small enough where it's not going to be like one of those Hail Mary type deals for a bass. You're not going to have an 8 or 10 pounder look at the thing before they hit it. You can catch a lot of 2-pound bass on this thing. This 8-inch Magdrap is a big bait. A lot of guys that fish up north for smallmouth, a big northern smallmouth bait, this has been a big killer on it. And this right here, the 8-inch Magdrap, it's the bait that you want to be throwing during the pre-spawn. Anytime that you've got water temperatures like in the mid to upper 50s, and those big fish are starting to move shallow, they're starting to stage, getting ready to spawn, this has been an awesome bait for me. All around like the Ozarks here, Table Rock, Stockton Lake, Bull Shoals, all those type of stuff. Anywhere I've been in Texas, anytime you've got those situations where those big pre-spawn bass are moving up into that 4 to 6 foot range, this 8-inch Magdrap will catch them really good. And there's a great video that Chris Zaldain was on Kentucky Lake, I think it was maybe last year or the year before that, catching giants on the 8-inch Magdrap on riprap, which is another good bait, another good, you know, type of cover to fish that. Here again, same deal. You got the head, you know, movement on the bait. You got the big waggling tail. I throw this bait again on the Megabass Warhammer, again with anywhere between 20 to 25 pound test line. Sometimes if I want to slow roll it, like down off a deeper riprap edge, or try to get that bait down into that 5 to 10 foot zone, I'll drop down to 17 pound test line at times to get it down a little bit quicker. Again, super slow retrieve. This bait is a little bit more versatile as far as where you can throw it. You know, since it's a little bit smaller bait, it's still a big bait. I'm not saying it's small. Here's a comparison with the Vision 110 against it. I can throw it a little bit more. I can throw it, I don't have to have those areas where I have to have those fish ambush it from a piece of cover or come up out of deep water for it. I can fish this bait over shallow grass beds. I can fish it down just straight sections of bank. I can fish it off the end of laydowns. I can fish it off of the same type of targets that I'm fishing a spinnerbait, a chatterbait, a squarebill crankbait, that type of stuff. It's just going to be one of those baits, when you do get a bite on it, it's going to be a good one. The 6-inch ones, like I said, the 6-inch Magdrap, this is the freestyle, not the hook in it, but the 6-inch one is a lot more tournament applicable because you can catch numbers of fish on it. But still, when you go to the 8-inch model, you know, you're sacrificing the number for the size on those things. Both of these comes, the 10-inch comes with a 2-aught treble in there. The 8-inch comes with a 3-aught treble. And one of the things that you want to do with this when you rig it is the Magdrap, it's got a slit on the belly that you can see right here. So you take you take one of the barbs of it, stick it back in there to where you have your hooks like that on there. And the first thing that I noticed about that is it's like, man, I looked at that thing and I said, man, that thing they're going to miss that thing. They're going to hit that thing on the tail a lot, and you're going to miss them, or that thing is so tight into the belly, you're going to lose a lot of fish. When a fish hits this thing, you don't hardly ever lose them for some reason. The way that hook is setting up like that, it looks super natural to the bait. Since this is such a big bait, most of the fish, when they get it by the head. So you got the hook in there that's really good on that. So that's the best way to throw it on that. Another thing I like to do on this, I do like to use scent on this. I think the bass study this thing a lot. You'll see a lot of ones follow it. They get within, you know, probably a couple inches of the bait. So I put a lot of different scent, garlic scent, you know, all over the bait, you know, just trying to increase that strike positivity on it. So anyway, that's the two giant ones that I fish. 8-inch Megabass Magdrap here, 10-inch Megabass Magdrap there. Two super big bass baits. Again, when you decide to fish these big swim baits, you've got to make a mental shift, a mental commitment to fishing them, because anytime that you put a big swim bait on, big glide bait, big swim bait like that, you can't go out there and throw it for like an hour or two and then put it down, because if you do that, you're going to miss that bite window. Big swim baits and big glide baits are all about having one rod on the deck and throwing them all day long, unless you're tournament fishing. I mean, a lot of times when you're tournament fishing, you wait till you get a limit and then maybe you pick these things up hoping for a big one. But if you just want to be out there trying to catch a big fish and wanting to learn about them, don't take anything else. Take one 8-incher, take one 10-incher. Just throw it all day long. You know, just fish it, find out the best time of days that the fish are biting it, under which conditions on the lake that you're fishing, and experiment with colors too. The colors on these things, they're dependent upon the water clarity, dependent upon the sky conditions, the wind, the sun angle, a lot of stuff like that. If you get some fish that are following the thing and not biting it, you might want to make a color adjustment, simply because you can't make a speed adjustment on this bait, simply because if you speed it up, it's going to roll. So you've got to keep the speed the same all the time. One of the things I will do with this that sometimes trigger them is I'll be just slowly reeling it, and once in a while I'll just go like that real quick. Just a quick thing like that. And that makes that thing just dart just a little bit, and sometimes they'll get it after it darts like that. So anyway, that's the deal on the big swim baits today. Fascinating lure for me to fish. I mean, they're really addictive. If you go out there and you have a good day on them and you catch a few fish, or you see some big fish being caught on them, or you see big fish following them, you want to keep throwing them, because they're really cool looking in the water, and they're just a very unique lure category. So that's today's tip, big swim baits. Probably start getting into a little bit of swim bait series here. We'll go down in size, to the more day in, day out, the more reliable ones that you can actually get bites on day in and day out. So that's the deal for today. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you like the video, hit the like, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. See you.